The best way to convince an atheist that Christianity is the truth is by sitting down with them and not debating, but simply asking them if you could share what your point of view is about the origin of life and about the afterlife and heaven.
So you're saying that the best way to convince me or any other atheist that magic is real and that a God who is made out of magic exists, and that out of all of the entirely baseless and violently contradictory claims about different versions of this obviously imaginary deity, that the particularly irreconcilable nonsense of Christianity specifically is true, despite everything that that religion teaches, and regardless of all of the lies that apologists keep reciting, the best way to convince an atheist is not to show that there is any truth behind your fantasy, but instead to ask me to explain reality. How could that possibly convince me?
And if they say yes, most of the time they'll say no, but if they say yes...
Hey, I have no problem explaining reality to you, apart from the fact that I've already tried with you before, and you're determined not to listen or learn anything.
You need to caringly and calmly tell them what the facts are and what the truth is.
There's the problem right there. The truth is what the facts are. What we can show to be true, not whatever else we might assume or imagine beyond or instead of that, which is the realm of religion. You can't show that there is any truth to your position because you have no facts to support it. You don't know what truth is, nor do you care, because you make your living by lying. I have repeatedly explained to you what the facts are and what the truth is, but it doesn't make any difference. Your mind is closed to everything except what you're trying to make believe. Using evidence and logic on you is like throwing a frisbee at a brain-dead dog. No effect at all.
And a lot of times people will not care about how much you know until they know how much you care. Very important. So put a smile on your face.
And be fake. Goes with the glassy-eyed stare, that mannequin smile. No, you've got it backwards. It doesn't matter how rude or polite you are. Can you show that you're right? Because you could be a total asshole and I could hate you and still publicly admit that, yeah, he was a total dick about it, but damn it, he's right. If you can show that you're right, like I can when I get into these arguments. I make sure that I can do that. You guys never do. You can't honestly say that it's true until or unless you can show me the truth of it, the objectively verifiable facts leading only to that conclusion exclusively. Don't expect me to believe impossible nonsense for no good reason. If you expect me to buy into your empty, indefensible assertions on faith, then you had better maintain impeccable credibility, meaning that you better not lie about anything.
And I would start out by mentioning the fact that atheism is truly based in mysticism.
So the way to convince atheists that you're telling the truth is by lying to them. Stupid lies that they can see right through immediately, so that they know right away that you're full of it. Brilliant! A cunning plan! Christianity is based on mysticism. Jesus and Paul both made that abundantly clear. It's funny to me how believers seem to know how indefensible their own position is, so the only thing they can do is pretend as if everyone else is them, as if everyone else is just as bad and has all the same faults that you alone do, as if a lack of faith or religion suddenly becomes a religious faith, as if the opposite is whatever the opposite of it is. We say it is what it is, and you say, no it isn't, as if it is what it ain't. Think about this. If you're in the U.S. and you meet an American atheist, you're talking to someone who was raised in a culture that was dripping filthy with religious influences. And most of the time, if you're talking to an American atheist, then you're talking to a former Christian. You're talking to someone who once believed as you do, until they realize that there is no truth to that religion, nor to any other religion either. None of them can show that they are any more accurate than all of the others. All of them combined can't even show that there's a there there, that there even is a supernatural at all. So for an awful lot of us, the reason we are atheists is because we reject mysticism. So how does the rejection of mysticism become mysticism?
Think about it. If the world created itself, that is by definition a magic act.
I never met anyone who believed that the world created itself.
It is not scientific in any way to assert that matter and energy could create itself, that it could pop into existence on its own.
Then why do you believe that it did? Why are you proposing creation ex nihilo, out of nothing? We don't believe that.
An outside force had to create time, space, and matter.
The very first law of thermodynamics says that material energy can neither be created nor destroyed, so it wasn't. And why would we have to step out of reality to create what was never created and is already in reality?
Either one of two things happened. Either God created this world, or everything created itself from magic.
Or, since no one ever believed that one, let's look at a third option, and this is the one that all of the astrophysicists get behind. There was no creation. Cosmic inflation had a beginning, but the universe itself did not. Every model of cosmogony I know of starts with something, usually a singularity, that already existed before the beginning of time or is otherwise eternal. I don't know of any model that starts with absolutely nothing. That's your belief, not ours.
Either time, space, and nature poofed into existence from a mystical act of randomness, or it was designed.
Or it is, in some sense, eternal and therefore never came into existence at all.
Intelligent design is true.
No, intelligent design is a lie, and it was revealed in a court of law to have begun as a criminal conspiracy to get around the laws against teaching religion in public school.
And even if we granted that the Big Bang happened, it would still require supernatural power to be able to convert nothing into something.
But we're not the ones who believe that everything came from nothing. I know I've explained this to you before, probably multiple times. So that you think the way to convince an atheist that you're telling the truth is by strawmanning his position, by claiming facts that are not facts, by lying to him, by telling him things that are factually false, and then telling him that he believes what he does not believe, then ridicule him for believing what he never believed, and ignore him when he says that he never believed that. I bet you couldn't name any actual atheist you ever talked to whom that worked on.
So even if the Big Bang is true, atheism is still false.
You don't know what atheism is, do you? It's the position of, we don't believe you. How could you say that that is true or false? You're making a claim that we don't believe. The purpose of your video is to convince us to believe you. It is true that we still don't believe you. You could say that. You could also admit that the fact that we don't believe you is your fault.
And the reason we know the Big Bang could not have taken place is because you cannot convert dust to water.
I don't know why you would need to get water out of dust, but yeah, you can do that. Sometimes, depends on what the dust is made of. Most of the time it's organic waste, but I'm sure you were referring to inorganic dust. There are lots of minerals I could point to, but just for the fun of it, I want to consider cummingtonite. It's a pretty average rock in most respects. This is its chemical formula. Notice it has some magnesium, iron, silicon, but look, it also has plenty of oxygen and a bit of hydrogen. Break this molecule down to its elementary level and you could build back water from cummingtonite. If you want another formula for cummingtonite, I suggest this formula for Viagra.
Think about it. You would have had H2O convert from dust particles. It doesn't make any sense. 326 million trillion gallons of water exist on Earth alone, and to say that all of that was condensed as energy, they claim, in an infinitely dense hot point is ludicrous and absurd, and it is demonstratively false.
And you're demonstratively stupid. You're confusing three different theories in a way that don't even relate to each other. The Big Bang is said to have converted energy into matter, specifically producing the lightest chemical elements, hydrogen and helium. We can't have water yet because there's no oxygen yet. Not until we get away from the Big Bang. So we're no longer talking about Big Bang theory. Now we're talking about nebular theory. And that explains the origin of the stars, wherein vast clouds of hydrogen and helium collapse under their own weight of gravity until the increasing pressure heats these elements enough to initiate nuclear fusion, producing stars. Then stellar nucleosynthetic theory takes over to explain how in the core of these radioactive furnaces, hydrogen and helium can collide at each other at such accelerated speeds that they fuse, fusion, and they become one atom to become lithium or beryllium or boron or carbon or oxygen. and so on, up to iron. It takes next-level stellar processes to go beyond iron. Occasionally, stars explode and send their dust into the cosmos. And now we have free-roaming oxygen and hydrogen just out there in the wild. And their structure is such that they are naturally inclined to form covalent bonds with other atoms, which will often, and oxygen will often attract hydrogens among all of the other particles gathering around. And that's chemical theory, also known as the theory of periodicity, which is illustrated in the periodic table. Now planetary accretion theory takes over to explain how these newly made molecules accumulate into larger and larger conglomerations because of their combined gravity. There are some space rocks that have many chemical compounds in them, including water. And that's how you really can get water out of dust. But you don't have to get all your water out of dust, because there are clouds of water vapor and even oceans of water out there in space. You should be embarrassed, and you would be if you had either honor or shame.
And once an atheist begins to understand that God is their creator, that God made them.
Wait a minute, you skipped the important part, where you were going to show us the evidence that your God exists. You have to start with that. Show us that the supernatural is real, and then show us that there's a God, and then you can show us which kind of God that is. You want to go all the way to the end. You want to save the Bible. No. No matter what you do, you're never going to be able to defend the Bible. Okay? But you forgot to give us a reason to believe you, and we kind of still need that. Is it really your plan to convince atheists that you know what you're talking about by showing us how you don't know anything? Can you actually find atheists who are even dumber than you are?
And that God loves them because he gave them the gift of life, the gift of human existence.
For which we are told that we are but cursed sinners who have to beg him to forgive us for what he did to us, and how he loves us so much that he will torture us savagely, mercilessly, and relentlessly for all eternity, simply because idiotic liars like you failed to convince us that he exists. It is not possible in one lifetime to commit enough crime to deserve eternal damnation, even without the torture. So that is already unjust, already indefensibly unjust. But to make it worse, your bullshit story says that we are damned not for anything we might have done wrong, but over what or whether we believed. We're being punished for a thought crime. How indefensibly unjust is that? And if we were somehow gullible enough to believe you, then we also have to believe that we'll be damned to an eternity in heaven, where we have to endlessly praise and kiss the ass of an inexplicably insecure, tyrannical narcissist. And that's the best we can hope for. Never-ending, eternal monotony, where there is no way to grow or learn or improve. And I know that doesn't bother you, but it would me. I want to learn. I want to get better than I was. So in this situation, there would be no way to enjoy being anymore. We can't learn new things. We've done it. We've seen that movie already 10 billion times. And there's no way to get out of heaven. There's no way to just let it end. As Christopher Hitchens put it, heaven is a celestial North Korea, but at least you can die and escape North Korea. In heaven, there's not even a possibility of suicide, no matter how much you want it. Well, there may still be a way out, depending on how you interpret it. They say that if you believe in Jesus, then you will live forever after you die. Which is stupid, but we'll leave that for the moment. But if you don't believe, then the wages of sin is death, meaning that you will die. So you won't have to spend eternity tonguing the colon of the almighty Jesus. The wages of sin is death, and I will pay all I can to just die and stay dead and not be doomed to adore the despot of this death cult.
It's very important to explain then that Jesus is the truth and that he has shown himself to be authentic.
Jesus is both a liar and a lie. A first-century faith-healing fraud who didn't know the causes of the diseases he pretended to cure. He claimed to be an exorcist. He thought that illnesses were caused by demons. No wonder you liked him so much. Your Lord is as dumb as you are.
If somebody could die and then come back from the dead, that means that that individual has power, authority, and credibility.
No, non sequitur. It doesn't mean any of that. But it doesn't matter, because your cult leader didn't come back from the dead.
Jesus did raise from the dead.
No, he didn't. He's still dead. which is a silly thing to have to say, because he failed his own prophecy. They were supposed to see him coming in the clouds at the right hand of power, way back when his disciples and the rest of their generation were still alive. But now, your boy is a couple thousand years late, and you're still waiting there, munching on the breadsticks. You've been stood up. He ain't coming.
And many historians will even admit that.
Yeah, I'm sure Christian historians will pretend like so many other Christians do, but there are plenty of other historians who will not admit that. There are even some Christian historians that I've talked to who admit that there is no evidence of that.
And what that tells us is that the New Testament is authentic.
You mean the haphazard compilation of mysticism that was authored anonymously and then subsequently interpolated, but where none of it can be validated, and a lot of it is contradicted, and most of it is insubstantial or entirely speculative, and much of it is fraudulent? Not to mention the books that are referenced therein, but were omitted by human editors and then lost?
Think about it. The New Testament is 27 different books that are all compiled together in one book. And the Gospels contain eyewitness accounts of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection.
No. I've talked with several Bible scholars, biblical historians and such, and they pretty consistently maintain that there were no eyewitness accounts to any of that.
And when Jesus died and resurrected from the dead, it shook up all of history so much
that nobody remembered it. Outside of the Bible, no one in the whole world, in any other nation, remembers 9 hours of darkness, nor hundreds of undead saints doing the Thriller in downtown Judea, almost as if none of that really happened.
Scholars in the first century like Josephus, Tacitus, Pliny the Younger, and so on and so forth were writing about Jesus of Nazareth and about how he had done many miracles and how he had risen from the dead.
Again, no. Historic figures wrote of the cult of Christus, sure, and there were fraudulent interpretations of things Josephus and such did not really write and would never have said.
And how people were giving their lives for their belief in the resurrection.
Yes, plenty of people have died for various cults throughout history. I'm going to shut you up now because from here on you're just filleting your favorite fantasy. You never get to a point where you even begin to do or say anything that could convince an atheist to believe as you do. You don't even seem to know anything about people who rely on reason. When we were kids and our parents said something that didn't make sense, we would ask why. And some parents answered, "'Cause I said so, that's why." If you rely on reason, then you know that that is not a reason. It doesn't explain anything, and it doesn't answer your question. We don't ask that out of disrespect nor insubordination. We ask that because we want to understand. Those who rely on proclamations of authority do not want to understand. That's why you don't understand anything, not even your own side. I know both sides of this issue better than you know your own alone. The only way you could convince me to believe in Jesus is to show me the evidence that you do not have. I'll leave you with this. There was an informal poll done at one of the annual conventions of American Atheists, which are always a good time. I'll put a link to the next one in Eastern Weekend in Minneapolis. Anyway, this poll asked that if you were once a believer, then how did you lose your faith? The top 3 answers were these. The tertiary answer was scientific knowledge. You failed that one spectacularly. The second place answer was the hypocrisy of the church, like when those who proclaim absolute truth can't stop lying. That's you too. The number 1 answer for why American Christians gave up their faith and became atheists is because they read the Bible. If I wanted to convince you to be an atheist, we would start with the Bible. Haven't you ever wondered why so many Bible scholars and seminary students study the history and the compilation of these fables until they can't even believe them anymore? That's what happened to me. You might be able to convince me that some sort of God exists, but not the Bible God. I know better than that God already.